Okay, now start it.
All right, today we're going to go over how to make a sensor module. And a sensor module consists of the radio module together with a little sensor board. And I'm going to go over how you can wire these two together along with the battery in order to make a biosensor module that you can wear either on your wrist or in a baby shoe or whatever you want. To do this job, you need a few tools. For example, we need a long needle nose pliers, some wire strippers, some wire cutters, some tweezers, ribbon cable, which is what we're going to use to join the two boards. And over here, we need a large vise, small vise for holding little connectors, and we need a soldering iron. One point I want to make about the soldering iron is it's very important that you first wet the sponge because the soldering iron tip has to be kept very clean. And the other thing I want to mention is that I prefer to use a medium-size soldering iron instead of a small size because I know it's very common to, when you first start working on small parts, to run out and get the tiniest soldering iron you can buy. But it's actually better to get a medium-sized soldering iron and a small tip because the larger soldering iron heats up faster, and you can still get the same radius tip, and the long one's even better because you can get into tight places that you can't get at with this short little stubby small tip. So medium-sized iron and small, fine, long tip, and that's the way to go. All right, we have a choice of two different ways that you can put these modules together. One is to sort of piggyback them one on top of each other. This is for when you want to make the most compact module to like stuff in a wristband or in a shoe, for example. But there's another kind of band you could make, which is like this, where you actually want them further apart from each other. And this is for like if you want to wrap it around your wrist. And in that case, you have the radio module on top and the sensor board on the bottom. And the advantage there, in this case, is that this is doing a heart rate measurement. So you want access at the vein right here under your thumb. So these are different ways that you can connect the modules together. All right, the first thing you do is you cut a really short piece of ribbon cable like this. And now, using the cutters, we're going to cut in between each wire, because we're going to separate the ends. You peel back each wire so that basically separating the webbing between, just breaking the webbing between each strand. So you end up with something like this, if you can kind of see that. All right, so I've done it on both ends. You can see both ends have been separated. You'll notice here that the wires in the middle are longer than the ones on the ends. So what I do is you just trim the ones in the middle a little bit so that you want roughly equal lengths. And the next thing we're going to do is to strip the wires. So for that, you use your wire stripper and you just go down the line. Just strip a few, like 1 or 2 millimeters off the edge, off the end of each wire. Now, this part's very important. These are stranded wires, so if you're not careful, the strands are going to fray. So to prevent it from fraying, the next step we're going to do is to add a little bit of solder on each wire to hold the strands together. Okay, as you can see, I have the little wires on the vise spread out, and here's a soldering iron. It's very important that you clean the tip. The tip should be nice and shiny. If it's not shiny, and if solder doesn't stick to it, then that's bad news. You need to clean the tip. But you see the solder is sticking to the tip, so that's good. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I can proceed. So you put a little bit of solder on the edge of the tip, and then I go down the line and I just put a little bit of, just like if you were painting it, You just put a little bit of solder on each tip. I'm not trying to put a big blob because then it won't fit in the hole. You're just putting a tiny bit of solder on the tip to hold the ends together. Okay, as you can see here, we've just cut the wires, and I haven't soldered anything. I just push the wires into the holes, and you want to push them and keep holding them with your fingers so that these ends stick out while you go over and solder them. What you do is you put some solder on the tip, hold it with your hand, and you just solder, apply it with the end. And you only need to do this for a couple wires. After that, you don't need to hold it anymore, and then you can just go over pretty quickly. But I just do the ones on the ends because those are the ones that have the most tension. So now I just go down the line and solder each one. And you notice, I warm it up, then I push the solder into it, and then the solder gets sucked into the hole. So it's pretty fast and pretty clean. Okay, that's it. Then you go across and snip off any ends that are sticking out, and that's important because you don't want any pieces sticking out that could puncture your insulation and then short with something else that's below it. Okay, the next step is we're going to test fit and decide where these wires are going to go on the radio module. So you take a look and see how the wires are bent, and if you need to make any adjustments, that's where you use your needle nose pliers to kind of pre-bend your wires so that they fit and go into the hole really easily. And you can also trim the wires and adjust the lengths if you need to. The very first 4 wires go straight in, so I've bent those and I've pushed them in the hole, and now they're ready to be soldered in, just like we soldered the wire to the other to the sensor module. So put a blob there, another blob there. Let the solder soak into the hole, and then go back and do the ends again, just adding a little bit more solder. Notice that I'm not holding my iron on any one wire too long, because then the whole thing will melt and it'll make a big mess. So you just want to work quickly and just touch and release very quickly. Okay. And then you go back and just trim the excess that's sticking out. Okay, as you can see, we've mounted the board on this other vise, which holds the board from the edges, so you can have the board flat and it's easier to work with that way. Using the needle nose pliers, I've threaded the wires into the vias that they need to go into, and now I'm going to tilt it, and I'm just going to solder the other side. Okay, for this last wire, the one that goes on the second row, we could just do it the same way we did the others, just with a needle nose plier. You thread it in, and then you solder the edge. But I'm going to demonstrate a different way, an optional alternative way of putting a wire into a via. Okay, what we're going to do here, this is a little bit counterintuitive, but to put the wire into the hole, we're actually going to fill the hole first with solder, like so, and you fill it all the way up, so you see there's a little bulb sticking out of solder. So the via is completely full and there's a little bulge sticking out. Okay, so this via is full of solder, and we want to put this blue wire into that hole. So what we do first is grab a hold of the wire with the tweezers, and with the tip of the soldering iron, I heat up the solder, and as soon as it's melted, you see the wire easily goes into the hole, and then you can let go, and now it's in the hole.